What are parallel lines again?
Lines that don't.
Good. Lines that don't touch. They never cross, never touch, never intersect. You can use any of those words. It's your notes. I'm going to use the word intersect because that's our academic word, but if you'd rather use not touch, not cross, things like that, you can. So in order for two lines to never touch, as we took a look at our graphs, remember for not touching, what has to be the same? What has to be the thing about the slopes? They have to be the same slopes, or they have to be equal slopes. Okay, so same slopes. All right, so with one color highlighter, up to you on which colors you want to use today. But with this one, I'm going to do parallel is same slopes. It's kind of our big idea. So you could use a colored pencil if you want to circle and box, or if you want to shade in. Or if you want to grab a highlighter. Highlighters are the ones that are colored all the way through. If you have white on it, that's a whiteboard marker. All right, next up we have perpendicular lines. What does it mean if two lines are perpendicular? Good, they meet at a 90-degree angle. I'm going to use again that word intersect, but if you want to use meet or cross or touch, they intersect at a 90-degree angle, or at a right angle, you could even use. We talked about those slopes. So first off, to make 90 degrees, it has to switch directions. So if it was positive, it needs to switch to negative. If it's negative, it has to switch to positive, so that's our opposite part. But then it also needs to switch and flip the fraction, the rise over run. So opposite, reciprocal. Okay, so perpendicular, I'm going to use my other color for that. And I'm going to highlight that idea that's opposite reciprocal slopes. That's a big idea. Okay, last thing that we're going to do today. Today we're going to be talking about equations. And we're going to talk about equations in the form that we normally work with equations. You might remember it from last year. It was y equals mx plus b. Anyone remember what that's called? M is the slope, so it's called slope. And then b is the intercept. So slope-intercept form. All right, so as we take a look at that equation slope-intercept form, it's y equals mx plus b. All right, what does m stand for? Yep, m is the slope. M generally from here on out in your math careers, M will represent slope. And then it's this really fancy name. It's called slope-intercept form because we have a slope and what is B? Good. I like how you said that, Joey. Y-intercept. It's an intercept where it crosses the y-axis. Now, we're not actually going to be graphing them, so we're not going to see that y-intercept. We're just going to be manipulating some equations. Just because as we work through geometry, sometimes it's really easy for us to forget some of the things we learned in algebra. So this is a good way for us to kind of get back to our algebra ideas. Because next year, most of you are going to be taking Algebra 2. Okay, not all of you, but most of you. All right, so we have two examples. So our first example, we're going to write an equation. We're going to write out the whole directions here, and then the next one we'll do a little bit shorter. Write an equation parallel to y equals 9/4 x minus 1 and goes through -4, 7, that point. All right, so give you a second to finish writing that all down. All right, so as we take a look at that, what are we trying to do? What kind of line are we making? Parallel. So I'm going to go back to my color that I used for parallel. I used yellow. So I'm going to highlight that word parallel. And the part that I need is, I need to have the same slope. So for same slope, I need to know what part is my slope from this equation, my m. So what is the m from this equation? Good, 9/4. That's our rise and our run, 9/4. So my new slope is still going to be 9/4. So our next step is going to say y equals, do I know the m? Yeah, what did we just say is the m? 9/4 x plus, and we don't know the b yet. That's our goal, is we need a new b. We're not going to keep the -1 because this -4, 7 won't go through that. So we're going to put a b in kind of as our blank, as our b. Our goal is we need to find that number so that it goes through this point, -4, 7. Now there's a couple ways to do that. We could have put it in point slope form first. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x1. But that requires us to think a lot. And this one we can just solve it pretty simply. Camille, put away your phone. Thank you. School rules, man. All right, so here's our x and our y. So what this is telling me is if I do 9/4 times our x, what is our x? -4. and I do that plus a number, some number there, what does my answer have to be? What is my y? What would my output be? 7. Because that's where that ordered pair comes from. When I put negative 4 in, I have to get out 7. And now we're going to solve that equation to get b by itself. Before I start solving and undoing things, I do need to simplify. So I can multiply this 9/4 times negative 4. So we get 7 equals, and then in my calculator, I'm doing 9/4, so 9 divided by 4, and then in parentheses, negative 4, and we get negative 9. So my negative 9 plus b. So again, to get that part, I just put that in my calculator. 9/4 times negative 4, and we get negative 9. Now our goal is to find out what b is. Some people, they can look at this and think negative 9 plus what is 7. Some people, they might think they know the answer, but then they don't. So let's just solve it. How would I undo adding a negative 9? Good, a positive 9. And if I do it on one side? Other side. All right, so 7 plus 9 is 16. These negative 9 and 9s, if it helps you to cross them out, you can. I don't like to cross mine out, so I just kind of lightly do it to show you that you can. And we get that b over here. So for our final answer, we always want our final answers to have that y and x there. We only want to fill in the blanks for m and b. We know our m. What is our m? 9/4. What's our b? 16. So we're just taking those answers and putting them in the equation. So it'd be y equals, and it goes m first, so mx. What's our m? 9/4 x plus, what's our b? 16. And that would be our answer. Okay, we got one more we're doing, and then you have the rest of the time for practice today. Number 2, we're going to be doing the same idea. I'm just not going to write down the whole directions of write an equation. We're just going to write perpendicular to we want it to be perpendicular to y equals negative 2x minus 5. And it's going to go through, or goes through, I suppose, because it's singular. And it goes through the ordered pair 2, 4. So currently this equation doesn't go through the line 2, 4, the point 2, 4. So this is kind of like on our worksheet where we had one line drawn and then we had another point somewhere on the graph. And we're trying to make that line that touches it at 90 degrees. Do you guys remember how we did that yesterday? A little bit? Okay.
I wasn't here yesterday.
You're right, so you wouldn't remember it.
Yeah.
So that probably wasn't a question for you. So it's like this one here where we had this line and we had an extra point. And now we're creating that line that touches it at that 90 degrees. But rather than drawing it, we're just doing it algebraically. So this time, what kind of line are we looking for? Perpendicular. And perpendicular tells us to do what? Well, change the slope. Yeah, we have a couple things we need to do. So what is our original slope to start with? Negative 2. I'm going to still highlight that just so that I know that's my starting point. And I'm going to write it out a little bit. Some of you might be able to do it without writing it out, but especially since this is our notes, this will be nice to look back at and be like, how did we do that? Just showing our thinking. So perpendicular has to be what kind of slopes? Opposite, reciprocal. So first thing I'm going to do is make it opposite. I'm going to do it in 2 steps, just that way I can see my thought process. So what's the opposite of -2? +2. Okay, not good enough yet, though. I need to do opposite, and I need to do reciprocal. And reciprocal means to flip it. So I need to think of this 2 as a fraction. How could I think of 2 as a fraction? Good, 2 over 1. You want to put this over 1 here too so you can see that. And now if I flip 2 over 1, it's now 1 over 2. So our m is going to be 1 over 2. Okay, I know probably a good amount of you, probably 2/3 of you, could have looked at -2 and gotten to that 1/2 without those 2 steps, but this is kind of your thought process. It's negative, so now we're going to go positive, and then we're going to flip it. If it was positive, what would have happened in the second step? Negative, good. All right, so now we have our equation, y equals, and it goes mx plus b. So what is our m to start off with? 1 over 2 now, x, plus, and do we know the b yet? No. So we're going to put a b there for b. So we plug in the part that we know, and now I'm going to use that point, because that point is an input-output. When we put in 2 for x, what should we get out? Okay, so for an ordered pair, that's what it means is when I put 2 in for the x, that means out of it, I should get a 4. It should equal 4. So I'm going to fill in those blanks. Some people, they like to just do x, y. I like to think of it as input, output. So I do the y last, but we could just replace. So y is 4, so we're going to put y here for 4. Owen, Camille, off your phones. 1/2, what's our x? 2 plus b. And our goal is to find out what is b. So we're going to solve that equation. Before I solve, I do need to simplify. So I'm thinking what's half of 2? If you want to use a calculator, you can. Half is usually easier because we're just thinking what's half of. Half of 2 is 1. So 1/2 times 2 is 1. Plus b. Some of you probably could fill in what b is without having to solve. 1 plus something is 4. But if it was a number that we didn't know, we would solve it by undoing adding 1. How do I undo adding 1? Subtract 1, both sides. 4 minus 1? 3. 1 and -1 are gone, or 1 minus 1 is gone, so we're left with b. So not quite our final answer yet. Need to rewrite that as our final answer. Y equals, what is our m? 1 over 2 x plus 3. So we're doing the same thing we did yesterday, it's just we're doing it algebraically without that graph. All right, there is a practice today. It's in Schoology. Remember yesterday there was also a practice. It was the 3-3 practice. I'll be grading that today along with those worksheets. All right, I did update grades yesterday, so take a look at the grade book, see what you're missing, what you need.
Can I come in your room?
Yep, you signed up for a time. All right, and then your test for this is going to be next Tuesday. Test is a week from today. Test is a week from today. All right, practice is open in Schoology, and when you're done, you can check Stabber. Did you?
Do you work?
On Friday. Not on Thursday.
Bro, you know we are really
That's always.
I work Monday, Thursday. What's so funny? Bro, Thursday, Saturday.
You made me feel like I was crazy for a moment, but just as long as we're clear that you're the crazy one. All right, 3-4 practice is open in Schoology. Test is next Tuesday. So you want me checking Skywork for missing assignments?
What is he talking about?
Oh yeah, it was a summer.
No, even during school, I was working. I think it was Monday, and I didn't work. I think I was Mondays and Wednesdays. It's a slow word. I remember before. I'm glad you did.
Y'all need people.
What was this for? I think it was culture day.
To learning things. I want to be a manager so I can order everywhere. I'm be a manager so you can know what to order. Take out order. Doesn't matter. Girl.
I don't want to be a manager because if I was like Shanice, you know, Shanice really like don't do like taking